In the small town of Maplewood, Ohio, the summer sun had just begun to fade when Jake Turner and his wife Emily made a promise to each other. After years of hard work and sacrifice, they had finally saved enough money to start a new life far away from the town that held too many painful memories. Jake was a mechanic at the local garage, known for his strong hands and kind heart. Emily worked part-time at the town's library. Together, they dreamed of moving to California, a fresh start, new opportunities, and freedom from their past struggles. The plan was simple: sell their small house, take the money they had saved in a secret account, and leave Maplewood behind forever. Emily was the careful one. She handled their savings and kept a close eye on every dollar. Jake trusted her completely, believing their future was safe in her hands. But as summer days slipped into early fall, Emily grew distant. She would spend hours on the phone, whispering late at night, and sometimes disappear without telling Jake where she was going. One evening, Jake returned home from work to find the house empty and a note on the kitchen table. It was Emily's handwriting. "Jake, I'm sorry. I need to find my own way. I took the money. I hope you understand someday." Shock hit Jake like a thunderbolt. All their savings gone, and Emily vanished. Jake reported Emily missing to the Maplewood Police Department. Detective Sarah Collins was assigned to the case. Sarah was known as a seasoned investigator with a sharp mind and a calm presence. She had solved many difficult cases in her 10 years on the force, but this one felt different, personal even. Sarah's first step was to understand Emily's background. What drove her to disappear? Was the money the only reason? And most importantly, where was Emily now? She began by interviewing Jake. His grief was raw, but he answered every question with honesty. Sarah learned about the couple's dream and the secret savings account. She also found out about Emily's late-night phone calls, which hinted at a hidden side of Emily Jake never knew. Next, Sarah checked Emily's phone records and messages. The late calls were mostly to a number registered under a fake name. She traced it to a prepaid phone bought in a nearby city. There was no clear answer yet, but Sarah felt the case was only beginning. Emily's vanishing was not just about money. There was a deeper story behind it. Someone or something had pushed her to run, and Jake's simple dream of a new life had turned into a nightmare. As Sarah dug deeper, strange clues started to surface. A mysterious man seen near Emily's favorite cafe, unaccounted withdrawals from the bank, and a torn piece of paper with a cryptic message found in Emily's car. What had Emily discovered? And who was she really running from? The small town of Maplewood was about to reveal secrets it had kept hidden for years. Secrets that would lead Sarah into the heart of a mystery darker than anyone imagined. Detective Sarah Collins stood outside the small cafe on Main Street, where several witnesses reported seeing Emily in the days before she vanished. The autumn breeze rattled the fallen leaves on the sidewalk, but Sarah's mind was focused on the puzzle pieces she had collected so far. Every clue seemed to lead to a shadowy figure lurking just beyond reach. Inside the cafe, Sarah spoke with the owner, Mrs. Harper, a kind woman in her 60s who had known Emily for years. "Emily was quiet, but she came here often," Mrs. Harper said softly. "Lately, though, she seemed worried, kept looking over her shoulder like she was afraid someone was following her." Sarah asked if Mrs. Harper had seen the man reported by witnesses. "Yes," she nodded. "Tall, wore a dark jacket, always had a hat pulled low. Never said much, just sat at the corner table and watched." With this description, Sarah checked the town's surveillance cameras, hoping to catch a glimpse of the mysterious man. The footage from the cafe parking lot revealed a figure matching the description. The man was watching Emily closely, even as she left hurriedly one afternoon. Sarah cross-checked the time and date with bank records. On the same day, several withdrawals were made from Emily's account at ATMs across town, but none were done by Emily. The man's presence suggested someone else had access or influence over Emily's movements. Digging deeper into Emily's past, Sarah uncovered a few surprising facts. Emily had a sister, Rachel, who lived out of state but had been cut off from the family for years. Sarah wondered if Rachel could be involved, or if some family secret was at the root of Emily's disappearance. The torn piece of paper found in Emily's car held a strange message. "Trust no one. The past will catch up." Sarah had the note sent for forensic analysis. The handwriting matched Emily's, but the tone was desperate, a warning or a cry for help. Sarah also re-examined Emily's phone records. The prepaid phone belonged to a man named Mark Daniels, a small-time criminal with a history of fraud and threats. When Sarah brought him in for questioning, Mark denied knowing Emily. But his phone location data told a different story. He had been near Emily's home several times in the last 2 weeks before she disappeared. The case was growing darker. Emily's safe future had been threatened by forces she tried to hide. But what exactly was she running from? Why had she taken the money? Sarah's gut told her there was more than just a sudden decision to vanish. Someone had been pressuring Emily, maybe even threatening her life. That night, Sarah sat in her office, reviewing all the evidence. The man in the dark jacket, the withdrawals made by someone else, the strange message, and the secret phone calls. They all pointed to a dangerous web surrounding Emily. She decided to reach out to Rachel, Emily's sister, hoping to learn more about Emily's past and uncover hidden secrets. Meanwhile, Jake Turner was growing desperate. Each day without Emily hurt him more. He held on to the hope that she was alive somewhere, and that the truth would come out. But the truth was buried deep in shadows, and Sarah knew that uncovering it would put everyone involved in danger. Detective Sarah Collins drove to the neighboring city of Columbus early the next morning. She had arranged to meet Rachel Turner, Emily's estranged sister, who had agreed to talk after Sarah's phone call the night before. Sarah hoped Rachel could shed light on Emily's mysterious past and the troubles that might have forced her to disappear. Rachel lived in a modest apartment in a quiet neighborhood. When Sarah arrived, Rachel opened the door cautiously, her eyes tired but guarded. "I didn't expect you to come all the way here," Rachel said. "I'm not sure I want to get involved." Sarah nodded calmly. "I understand this. It's difficult. But Emily's missing, and we need to know if there's anything you can tell us. Anything unusual she might have been hiding." Rachel let out a heavy sigh and invited Sarah inside. The apartment was sparsely furnished, with a few old photos on the wall. Some of Emily and Rachel as children, smiling and happy. Rachel explained their past. "Emily and I haven't spoken in years," she began. "After our parents died, things fell apart. Emily blamed me for some family troubles, and we just drifted apart." Sarah listened carefully as Rachel revealed a secret Emily had kept from everyone. A man named Richard Lane, who had been involved with their family and caused great pain. "Richard was our father's business partner," Rachel said quietly, "but he stole money from them. Emily found out and tried to stop him, but he threatened her." This was new information. Sarah wondered if Richard Lane could be the man in the dark jacket who had been watching Emily. Rachel went on. "Emily wanted to protect Jake and herself. That's why she saved money secretly. She planned to escape Richard and his threats." Sarah asked if Rachel knew where Emily might have gone. Rachel shook her head. "Number. But Emily mentioned a safe place she once stayed when she was younger, a cabin outside of town. I don't know the exact location, but maybe you can find it." Before leaving, Rachel handed Sarah a small envelope. "Emily gave this to me a few months ago, just in case something happened. She said it might help you." Back at the police station, Sarah carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a letter from Emily, written in a shaky hand. "If you're reading this, it means I'm in danger. Richard Lane is worse than anyone knows. He controls people who can find me anywhere. I don't trust anyone but my sister now. If I disappear, please protect Jake. The money was never just ours. It's to pay for what Richard took. Find the cabin. Find the truth." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. The case was more dangerous than she had imagined. Richard Lane was not just a shadowy figure. He was a powerful man with connections that could threaten anyone who stood against him. Next, Sarah focused on Richard Lane. She requested a background check and discovered a long list of lawsuits, suspicious business deals, and rumors of violence linked to him. But no charges had ever stuck. Sarah knew the investigation was about to enter a dangerous phase. Meanwhile, Jake was struggling to hold on. Without Emily, the future they dreamed of seemed impossible. But Sarah promised him she would find Emily, or at least the truth. Interview with Rachel Turner revealed a strange relationship and family history involving Richard Lane. New suspect, Richard Lane. father's former business partner accused of theft and threats. Evidence obtained, letter from Emily warning about Richard Lane and urging protection for Jake. Next steps: locate the cabin mentioned by Rachel, conduct background check on Richard Lane, assess risk level posed by Richard and his associates. Detective Sarah Collins felt a mix of urgency and caution as she prepared to search for the cabin Emily mentioned. The letter had given her the first real lead on where Emily might be hiding, but Sarah knew this wouldn't be easy. Richard Lane was dangerous, and his reach was long. Any mistake could put lives at risk. Sarah studied the maps and old property records of the area around Maplewood. She remembered Rachel's words. The cabin was outside of town, somewhere Emily had stayed before. After hours of research, she narrowed the location down to a dense forest about 20 miles northwest of Maplewood, near an abandoned logging trail. With a small team, Sarah drove out early the next morning. The forest was thick, quiet except for the rustle of leaves and the occasional bird call. The sun filtered weakly through the trees as they followed the trail deeper into the woods. After nearly an hour of careful searching, Sarah spotted the cabin. It was small and weathered, made of old wood with peeling paint. The door was slightly ajar. Sarah's heart pounded as she entered the cabin. Inside it was empty except for a few basic belongings: a folded blanket, some canned food, and a worn journal on the table. It was clear someone had been living here recently. Sarah picked up the journal and opened it. The pages were filled with Emily's handwriting, detailing her fear and the lengths she had gone to hide. Emily wrote about watching her back, hearing strange noises at night, and the constant dread that Richard Lane's men would find her. One entry stood out. "I don't know who to trust anymore. Mark Daniels showed up here last week. He said Richard sent him. I escaped, but I'm running out of time and strength." Sarah immediately recalled Mark Daniels, the man with the prepaid phone linked to Emily's movements. The connection between Richard Lane and Mark Daniels was clearer now. Mark was likely an enforcer or spy for Richard. In the corner of the cabin, Sarah found a small locked box. Using tools from her kit, she carefully opened it. Inside were photographs: Emily with an older man, who Sarah guessed was their father, and several documents, including bank statements showing large sums of money transferred from Richard Lane's accounts. One document was especially important: a contract proving that Richard Lane had secretly taken ownership of part of Emily and Rachel's family business after their parents died. This was motive enough for Richard to threaten Emily and Jake. Sarah took all the evidence back to the station. She had a clearer picture now. Emily was running from a man who had stolen from her family and wanted to silence her. The money she took was not just for a new life, but to protect her family's legacy. Back in town, Jake received news about the cabin. Hope flickered in his eyes for the first time in weeks. Maybe Emily was still alive, somewhere close, but Sarah warned him to be careful. Richard Lane's influence was strong, and the danger was far from over. Location: cabin found 20 miles northwest of Maplewood in dense forest. Evidence recovered: Emily's journal detailing fear and Mark Daniels' visit. Photographs and documents linking Richard Lane to family business fraud. Key discovery: contract proving Richard Lane's illegal takeover of family business. Conclusion: Richard Lane's motive linked to theft and threats against Emily. Mark Daniels acts as Richard's agent. Next steps: investigate Mark Daniels' role, secure protection for Jake, track Richard Lane's current activities. Detective Sarah Collins knew time was running out. With the cabin found and the connection between Richard Lane and Mark Daniels growing stronger, she needed to act quickly before Emily's fate was sealed. Back at the station, Sarah and her team focused on Mark Daniels. They obtained a search warrant for his apartment on the edge of town. The place was small and messy, filled with empty cans and papers scattered everywhere, a sign of a man living on the edge. Inside, they found a hidden safe behind a loose panel in the bedroom wall. Sarah carefully cracked it open. Inside were several envelopes filled with cash, a burner phone, and a notebook. The notebook contained detailed notes about Emily's movements, times, and places, clear evidence that Mark had been tracking her every step. While searching the apartment, Sarah's team also found a set of keys with a label, Warehouse 14, Dockside. This was a new lead. Sarah called for backup and prepared to check out the warehouse, hoping to find more about Richard Lane's operation. Meanwhile, Sarah put Jake under protective watch. She knew Richard's men could try to intimidate or harm him to get to Emily. At the warehouse by the docks, Sarah and her team arrived at night. The building was large and shadowy, with only a few dim lights inside. Moving quietly, they entered through a side door, unlocked by one of the keys. Inside, they found a small office filled with files and computers. Sarah's tech expert began downloading information from the computers. They discovered bank transfers, wiretaps, and communications between Richard Lane and various shady contacts. It was a criminal network, with illegal money movement and intimidation tactics. Suddenly, a noise from the back room caught their attention. Sarah motioned for her team to be ready. They slowly approached and found Emily. Tired, scared, but alive. She had been held captive, forced to help Richard Lane cover his tracks. Emily broke down in tears as Sarah reassured her. "You're safe now. We're here to protect you." Emily explained how Richard's men captured her after she tried to leave the cabin. They kept her hidden in the warehouse to stop her from going to the police or contacting Jake. With Emily found, Sarah felt the pressure to arrest Richard Lane quickly. But the criminal was smart. He had vanished. Sarah suspected he had fled town or gone into hiding. Jake rushed to the warehouse when Sarah called him. The reunion was emotional, but the mystery wasn't over yet. Richard Lane was still out there. Search warrant. Mark Daniels' apartment searched, found cash, burner phone, and notebook tracking Emily. New lead. Keys found for Warehouse 14 at the docks. Warehouse raid. Emily found alive, held captive. Evidence of Richard Lane's criminal network uncovered. Status: Richard Lane on the run. Investigation ongoing. Next steps: trace Richard Lane's whereabouts, secure Emily and Jake, prepare case for prosecution. Detective Sarah Collins knew that finding Emily was just the beginning. The real challenge was catching Richard Lane, the man behind all the danger and lies. He was smart and ruthless, and the evidence against him was strong, but he had disappeared without a trace. Sarah started by checking Richard Lane's known addresses, businesses, and phone records. Everything was either abandoned or cut off. His cars were gone, and even his staff seemed to have vanished. But Sarah found one weak point: a secret account that Richard had used to pay his men and hide money. It led to a safe deposit box at a local bank in Maplewood. Sarah got a court order to open it. Inside the box, they found bundles of cash, fake IDs, passports, and a plane ticket to Mexico under a false name. Richard was likely planning to escape the country. Meanwhile, Sarah increased protection for Emily and Jake. She placed them in a safe house far from Maplewood and arranged for constant security. Sarah also reached out to federal agents, hoping to stop Richard at the border. The investigation became a joint effort with the FBI. One evening, Sarah received a call from a border agent. Richard Lane was spotted trying to cross into Mexico through a small airport near the border. Sarah and a team rushed to the airport and set up a stakeout. Hours passed slowly until a black SUV pulled up. Richard stepped out, looking tired but determined. As he moved toward the private jet, Sarah and the agents moved in. They arrested Richard without a fight. He was taken into custody, handcuffed and silent. Back at the station, Sarah questioned Richard. At first, he denied everything, but when shown the documents, photos, and witness testimonies, his facade began to crack. Sarah pressed on, and finally Richard admitted to threatening Emily and trying to steal the family business. He claimed he only wanted the money to save his own failing ventures. Emily and Jake watched from the safe house as justice began to close in. The nightmare they had lived through was nearing its end. Richard Lane's movements. Attempts to flee to Mexico uncovered via secret accounts and plane ticket. Coordination with FBI. Successful arrest at border airport after surveillance. Interrogation results. Richard confessed to threats, kidnapping, and theft of family assets. Protective measures. Safe house and security provided for Emily and Jake. Next steps: prepare for trial, ensure victim protection, gather final evidence. The courtroom was filled with quiet tension. Months had passed since Richard Lane's arrest, and now the trial was finally underway in downtown Maplewood. Detective Sarah Collins sat in the back, watching closely as Emily and Jake faced the man who had turned their lives upside down. The prosecution laid out the evidence clearly: the stolen money, threats, kidnapping, and the illegal takeover of the family business. Photographs from the cabin, Emily's journal, Mark Daniels' tracking notes, and Richard's own confession were all presented. The case was strong. Richard Lane's defense tried to deny or minimize his actions, but the truth was undeniable. Witness after witness testified, including Rachel Turner, Emily's sister, who bravely recounted the pain and betrayal their family endured. The jury deliberated for only a few hours before returning with a verdict: guilty on all counts. As the judge sentenced Richard to 20 years in prison, Emily felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Justice had been served. Outside the courthouse, Sarah spoke with Emily and Jake. "It's over now. You're safe." Emily smiled for the first time in months. "Thank you, Detective. You saved my life and my future." Jake nodded, eyes shining with hope. "We're ready to start fresh. A new life, just like we dreamed." Sarah knew their road ahead would still have challenges. Healing would take time, and the scars of betrayal and fear wouldn't disappear overnight. But the hardest part was done. Back at the police station, Sarah filed the final report. The investigation had been difficult and dangerous, but it showed the power of persistence, courage, and truth. Emily and Jake moved away from Maplewood, starting over in a small town where no one knew their story. Sarah received a letter from Emily months later. "Thank you for never giving up on us. Because of you, we have hope again. We're safe, and that's the greatest gift." Detective Sarah Collins folded the letter carefully and placed it on her desk. Another case closed, but in her heart, she knew she had made a difference. Trial. Richard Lane found guilty of kidnapping, theft, and threats. Sentence: 20 years imprisonment. Victim status: Emily and Jake secured protection, beginning new lives. Detective's reflection: case highlights importance of dedication and justice. Closure: case closed, ongoing support for victims recommended.